Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bonus Points podcast. I am your host, Joe Garrett, as always being joined by Ollie Guy.
Hello, hello.
And today this is, it's kind of a bit of a mutual choice for games. So Ollie and I both have our kind of personal lists of games that we want to do at some point on the podcast. We both had Undertale on the list, but you were the one who kind of finally committed and said, yes, let's do it. Yeah. So I guess it's technically your choice. So why Undertale?
Well, that's what people want to see, innit? It's what I'm most requested.
Was it not on your list until people started requesting it? Or was it a game you wanted to play anyway?
It was on the list as well. It was on the list. So there's lots of reasons, really. Like, it's really requested. It was on my list. It's on Game Pass.
But why was it on your list? Like, why?
Just because it was one of those games that like everyone said you have to play more than anything else. Because, I mean, I've played like Earthbound and stuff, and like I thought they were okay. But the fact that everyone was like, you know, even my older brother was saying this was pretty good, so I was like, okay. And he doesn't like anything. That's why that's important.
How much did you know about the game before we played it for this podcast?
I'd seen like the opening 30-40 minutes, and I know what it's about, you know, like the whole you can talk to them or you can kill them, also the fact that the sequel's free, because that was a big thing in the news. But that was like it really.
But
like, you know, it's in the public, everyone knows about it, don't they? Like, it's literally everywhere. Like, you can't not know about it at this point.
Yeah, I feel like we always kind of give a little summary of like what the game is at the beginning. Yeah. Probably less necessary. Well, I think it'd be good to kind of talk about what it is. But first, have you kind of got some notes about kind of like who made it and kind of when it came out and stuff, just to kind of set the scene?
It's pretty short because obviously everyone knows. But yeah, so Undertale, it came out in 2015. It's a 2D role-playing game created by American indie developer Toby Fox. And it's available on PC, Mac, PS4, PS Vita, which is crazy, Switch, and the Xbox One, which is where I played it. Yeah.
And so also, like, so as you say, it was made by Toby Fox. I didn't realize that, I mean, obviously there was other people that kind of helped for like maybe porting it and doing, you know, some other stuff, but, you know, the actual game design was all Toby. But then there was an artist as well that I saw was credited online, Temi Chang. Yeah. And I didn't realize that was obviously, because, you know, did you ever find the like Temi village?
I don't think so.
There's like a hidden area where it's just full of like the like Temis, which are like these weird. I'm going to get it wrong now. Everyone's going to tell me. I don't know if they're like dogs or cats. They're weird creatures all over the land. It's one of the
I did see that.
Yeah. So obviously that was like a reference to them. I didn't realize kind of going into it. So obviously you kind of played through like as normal. This is a game that, because it was kind of so requested and I knew it's one that people kind of enjoy watching, I decided to stream through it, which is probably going to give me a slightly different lens to kind of some of the game, because I was trying to be very careful of spoilers, but I got a little bit of advice from the chat kind of going forward, which helped me out a bit. I also think I probably laughed way more than you, because, I mean, do you laugh on your own?
No, I did actually think, I had that same thought as well. That like I was like, this is funny.
Yeah, exactly. But if you were like watching, you know, with like your girlfriend with you or like someone else, like you'd probably laugh more. But because I was streaming, even though obviously like I'm in the room on my own, the dog sleeping in the corner or whatever, but because I'm in the room on my own, but because I know everyone's watching me, it feels weird if they're doing something funny and I am just like blank face the whole way through. So I think it actually really probably elevated my enjoyment of this game.
Well, the other thing about, you might have streamed it and you might have got a little bit of help there, but you did leave me to fend for myself with the questions coming in from the audience, so I did get some hints from them, because you were like, I'm not going to look, I'm going to get spoilers. It's like, well, someone's got to look at them.
Yeah, but you look at them after you're finished playing the game.
Yeah, but I have to moderate them, so someone has to check them. So yeah, I did get a few tips from reading them. And like kind of questions were about things I could work backwards and kind of like figure stuff out.
Yeah, like, I feel like people have very different definitions of what a spoiler is. I feel like some people are just like, oh, it's saying the end of it, you know, rather than like the question, which kind of says too much in the question itself. But yeah, as you say, very hugely popular game. Probably I mean, obviously, it's weird with things like Doom, which is obviously like probably the most popular game we've played, but like not now, not with the kids. But do you want to kind of just give a brief summary of kind of like how would you describe this game to someone who has never heard of Undertale?
Okay, so I would say it's an RPG, like an old school RPG, where you play as a little kid and you've come up against monsters, but just because they're standing opposite you doesn't mean you have to fight them. Exactly. That's how I would explain it to someone without spoiling it, basically.
And then I think you also got to go into like, if you do fight them, or even if you don't fight them, the actual gameplay is kind of a bit of like a bullet hell, like dodging gameplay.
That's great. Like, that's right. That's like, people probably don't know, I play a lot of games like that. Like,
they will do soon. There's one coming up.
There is one coming up where you fly a little ship around and like shoot enemies and they fly on the screen. So
I guess like Space Invaders is like an obviously but extreme. Space Invaders would be a nice touchstone.
So I was right at home with all that. That was great. We actually got a question about that. Oh yeah, here we go, from Cohen on YouTube, and they said it's quite aggressive, but they said, is it actually good turn-based combat for once?
So there's a diss against other turn-based combat?
I think so, yeah. I think so.
Yeah, because the world's kind of gradually moved away from turn-based. Like a lot of games that historically were turn-based have kind of moved away. Like Final Fantasy, you don't really expect that. I mean, Yakuza's the one standout going in the other direction. But apart from that, it seems the world is kind of moving on. Or if there is turn-based, it's like active turn-based. Like you're not selecting a move and it just happens. You're in some way kind of involved. Do you think this is like a nice balance where you don't feel rushed, you can take your time and go through the menus, but then there is something active for you to do gameplay-wise?
I think it's probably, in terms of balancing gameplay and like decision making, it probably is the perfect balance. But on the flip side is that once you've done it a few times, it's a bit like, okay, especially the ones where you're just talking, it's like, I know the process is to talk.
Yeah.
And I have to keep doing it over and over again because I'm not allowed to kill you for whatever reasons.
Yeah. And that's one of the problems with the comedy, is that it really makes you laugh the first time. Like the fights are some of the funniest parts when you'll do and you'd be fighting a dog and all you're trying to do is like pet the dog, and the way it responds is really funny. But then you do a similar one, or the same, you battle the same monster and it's exactly the same, and then it's a random battle game, so you end up fighting a lot of the same monsters again and again, and it gradually gets less and less funny. And then if, like me, you're not particularly good or not very experienced with those kind of games, and you fail a few times on bosses, that's when it becomes like the fact it's trying to be funny actually is negatively impacting it, rather than if it was just straight, because it's kind of annoying where you go and keep doing it. So
did you find it quite difficult then, the game generally?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah. I did. And I found it a bit like, because I found the puzzles too easy in the game, but then I found like some of the boss battles in particular quite challenging. I think when it's like a lot of things coming at you on the screen and you've got to dodge them, like my vision goes like blurry. Like I kind of like look at them, I can't like focus on it.
You're like an old man. It's like, whoa, it's like fall off your chair.
Too much mental stimulation. I can't handle it. And I will hide a little bit behind the fact that I'm streaming, because I am trying to like entertain and like do, like I think if I was just quiet, just hyper focused, not talking, like I would do a bit better. But also I think I found it a bit more difficult, and I guess the difficulty should be that way round, because at least you can practice and get better. And if you just can't solve a puzzle, then that's like, okay, you can't complete the game unless you look it up, so I guess that is the right way round. But before we get too much into the actual gameplay, I think the reason this game became as popular as it did isn't anything to do with the actual kind of minute-to-minute gameplay. It's more like the story and the themes. So did you have any thoughts about that? Is it what you expected?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, it's quite straightforward, really. Like, you fall down a hole and then you either fight your way out or talk your way out, and that's kind of it. Like,
what did you do?
I spared all of the bosses except for the 2 dogs who are knights, because I was like, well, what happened if I kill one? I don't know what will happen, so I'm just going to do it. And then I also killed most of the like general enemies. But like if someone was talking, like Sans or Papyrus, I was like, well, I can't kill them because they're part of the story. So that's kind of how I judged.
Yeah.
And also I wanted to level up because I was like, as it is getting harder, I need more health. So I need to kill a few enemies. So yeah, I got the neutral ending. I looked it up afterwards. So.
Okay, so just a little bit of pre-warning. We're going to be talking about every aspect of this game. If you haven't played Undertale and think you will, we are going to be spoiling the game here. So I did a pacifist run, so I didn't kill anything the whole game through, which might explain why I found it a bit more difficult because I wasn't leveling. Well, it's not leveling up. But do you remember what it stands for, like LV and
is it something
stuff?
violent? Something violent points and execution points. And, yeah.
Which is quite a cool moment. So I'm curious. I know it's kind of a bit early to be jumping into it, but I kind of want to know, like, what happened in your ending then? What happened for you?
So generally loved the game. Was walking up to fight Azrael or whatever his name was, Asgore, like the big king guy.
The king.
Asgore, yeah. I swear his name's Azrael at one point. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I was walking up and I was like, I completely get this game. Like, this is absolutely brilliant. Went through the fight with him, tried to talk to him, and it was like, you tell him he's defeated you twice before. And he shakes his head and carries on. Because I died twice before then. And I was like, God, this is like very, very... I can see why this is so popular. And I did all that, and then I spared him at the end. And then the flower turned up, killed him.
Okay, yeah.
And then the flower was like, I'm going to delete your save game. And then, like, deletes your save game, which it doesn't. It just looks like it does. And then it changed into, like, a photo shop flower.
Yeah! Yeah.
And then I was literally like... And then you do this, like, fight with him where you can't die as long as you don't stop moving. So you can just, like, fly around and you stay alive. And then you kill him. And then it ends. And then I was like... I don't want to play this game ever again. I just turned it off. And I was like, that is a horrific, terrible ending. And then I spoke to my friends about it. They were like, oh yeah, you play through like this and do a pacifist run and you can do genocide. And I was like, I don't want to play it ever again because the ending was so bad. It's made me not like the rest of it. So I'm just done. I'm done with it. That's basically what happened.
Because I did the pacifist run, which I only knew was a thing because of my chat. And so I'm kind of glad they said that because it seems like that might be the nicest ending. So everything you've said kind of happened to me as well, but I guess it kind of went on a little bit further. But I feel like the game can't hide behind saying, oh, if you did the pacifist run, you'd have got this cool ending, because most people wouldn't. You got to assume it's someone picking up the game blind, and they're going to do what you did. They're going to kill some things. They're going to like spare some things, because they're not going to know like, oh, you have to be exact and every single thing you need to kill or every single thing you need to save. Very few people are going to play like that on their first go. Even just in an early fight, they might just try fighting as just an experiment and not think twice about it, because I mean, to be fair, I don't need to spoil the pacifist ending because I do want to leave that open for people to go and play. I mean, you can always go and look it up on YouTube, but it is quite a satisfying ending where kind of all of the kind of characters come together and you go up to the surface and you're given quite a few choices, and it is definitely the good ending as far as I could tell. But it was kind of like a highlight to me, the ending. So it's kind of a shame that it sounds like the blind playthrough ending wasn't very good.
Well, I just didn't know, because I was like, the music is great, the graphics are great, like the characters are hilarious, and like this is all leading up to like fighting this guy, and then this flower comes back, and I was like, what's going on? And then it does this whole like, oh yeah, I'm going to delete your game and save over it and kill you over and over again, but like it doesn't actually do any of those things. So it's like, well, why are you even like?
Yeah, well, he's kind of saying that like,
what's happening?
I'm not going to let you win. It breaks the fourth wall and says, I know this is a game. I'm going to keep you playing forever, which is basically, the only way we can all carry on. Does it then reveal like who Flowey really is and who you really are? Does it go into that one?
No. Just you get a phone call from Sans and he's like, he basically tells you what happens with all the characters that you left alive.
Okay.
So for me, that was pretty much everyone. So he was like, oh, this person became the next king. Like, me and my brother are still hanging out. Stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay, like that bit was fine, but like what the hell was going on with that flower? It was like just complete nonsense. I was like, he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make you play forever, you can't win, and then you do win. It's like, well, can you or not? Like, what is happening?
It's like if you're gonna play that gag, you got to commit to it.
Exactly,
really. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, there needs to be some like, we talk about him too much, but like Kojima-esque trick to break out of it rather than just doing what you've been doing anyway and just play the shooter game.
yeah. And then it was like, the fourth wall breaking stuff is cool, but like, Deadpool came out of many years ago. MGS2 did it, and it's like it's fun. It's a fun trick, but like I don't know if it's enough for it to be like the main ending.
I didn't mind that because it was that's done throughout the whole game. Like the whole game is basically like a commentary on video games and like stereotypical video game design and playing with expectations. Like I remember the first time I went to a shop and I went to just sell a bunch of stuff, and they're like, "What do you mean? I'm not portal. I'm not going to buy your stuff. I'm a shop. What do you mean?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's what shops are like. You can't just go into WH Smith and say like, do you want to buy some like shells I picked up?" And they're like, "No, like we sell things there." It's like moments like that were great, and then obviously the whole opening, like the tutorial section, where it's like the mumsy like Toriel character like being really like, "Okay, can you pull the switch? Can you work out this puzzle?" And there's a switch with all like arrows around it and stuff. Like I loved all of that stuff. Was that kind of the same for you?
Yeah, like I loved all of it up till the end. Like every single thing, like Metaton, that robot, like that whole thing where you're like hanging out with him and he's so like weird, and then he turns into like a sexy man and like he's like dancing around. Like that was all great. Like Dr. Alfie's was great. Like did the whole date you go on with Papyrus?
Yeah,
where you like go back to his house, like that was all
and
amazing.
Like the menus come up on the screen that like don't actually do anything. Or like the gauges and stuff. Like
like it's all like. Just the whole thing is just so much fun.
Yeah. Like
more than it being like an immaculately designed game, like it's just fun. And like all the things it tries to do that are funny or fun, it works. So
yeah. It's such a shame because the ending was one of the highlights to me. And from hearing it the point where it ended for you, I get it. Because it kind of ends at that point. It sounds like I did everything that you did, but then it puts me back and it's like, hey, there's like another way you can do it differently, and then you go back into the Asgore fight, but then it leads into something else. And so this is like huge spoilers for anyone who hasn't played. This is your last chance. Click off now. Quick. If your phone's on the side, go grab it, quick, turn it off. So basically it reveals that Flowey is the son of Asgore and Toriel. And then they kind of talk about them siblings, and it reveals that you are not whatever you put your name in as isn't who you are. That was the first child that fell down, who was basically like, siblings with Flowey, and then you're like this other person that's kind of joined in, and you go through all of like that backstory and kind of find out who they really are, and it is quite interesting. And then it just gives you the happy ending where you go up to the surface, and it's kind of like it's drawn in a bit more detail, the surface, so it's kind of quite satisfying after the very basic graphics and really flat colors to kind of see, it's still the same style, but a bit more detail, and it is just like the happy monsters have gone to the surface and we're going to start the new world ending. And it's quite substantial as well. From that point, it's quite a few hours of gameplay.
Really?
That you get extra, and so and some of the best music and just feel good moments with all of the other characters where they kind of sum them all up. So it's such a shame that that's not the experience that 90% of people are going to have when they first play through this game. It's really the hardcore that see every outcome that are going to see that ending. Yeah,
especially because like I think it does ask you to do a new game plus, but not in as much detail as it doesn't put you back at the fight or anything. It's just you just start again.
Yeah,
and I remember thinking like, I have no interest in doing this. Like I've seen the ending and it was horrible. Like I don't want to do it again. Like, what I assumed was that the bit where he phones you and Sans phones you and tells you what everyone's doing, I assumed that would be different if you did a pacifist run. Like he would phone you and it would be much nicer. Because I also saw online a lot of people saying like, oh yeah, the Sans fight is really hard. I'm like, I didn't even fight him.
I'm trying to remember what the Sans fight.
Yeah, I didn't fight him. He just turned up at the corridor at the end and then he was like, oh, you need to be on your way or something, and then I went, and then that was it.
Yeah, I was just trying to think if there was a moment with him like earlier on, maybe when he first shows up, but no, maybe not.
Yeah,
I can't really remember.
People were saying that's like the hardest one in the game, and I think we'd remember it if...
Yeah, I mean, I struggled with the Asgore one, but I think a big reason for that was I didn't really have healing items, or very few, and it was quite a journey to go back and get more, and I probably would have done it, but once again, because I was streaming, I was like, oh, I don't want to like have to have them like spend ages watching me like try and run back, because I didn't realize it was going to be so much of like an open world, and there is kind of like not fast travel, but like there's like a boat that you can use to get around, and if you do go back to old areas, there are new conversations and things that open up and optional things you can go back to do, which I liked. It just felt like the world hadn't been particularly designed for that in mind, and they kind of built these areas and then kind of added it in, because it was always just a little bit too confusing navigating the world. I never had a good proper mental map of how things linked up.
I think that's probably because there's no overworld. Like, you know how in the old RPGs you could like leave town and there'd be like a little town and then you were a big guy? It didn't have that. That probably would have helped, because then you'd kind of be able to map it out a bit more. But like, I didn't feel like any of the world was wasted though. Like, it was never boring to walk through. Like, that was pretty good. Yeah,
I enjoyed it going through. It was just when it would be like, oh, go back to this house to do this. And I'd always be like, oh, like I'm in a screen and it's like a crossroad of 4 ways. And I'm like, oh, is it like down, left, or right to get back to, you know, and it didn't, and especially at the very end, you know, where you're leading up to Asgore, like in the core, and it's like those grey buildings in the background and all these elevators, like that whole area. I mean, I'm sure it's just me, but I kind of struggled getting around. Let's talk about the art a little bit, because obviously quite a distinctive art style, especially for a game coming out in 2015.
Yeah.
Do you like the look of the game?
Oh, yeah, it looks great. Like, considering how rough around the edges it appears to be, I feel like it's a fake rough around the edges. Like, they really knew what they were doing. Like, to the point when they could make it look bad on purpose so it looks good. Yeah. Like, the way that when you have pixel art normally and you, like, try not to cluster up outlines and things because you get sharp edges, they're just like... Like, they're just like it almost looks like they've just drawn it on the screen, but like it's like so charming, and like the main character's little face, it's like little, like the eyes and the little straight mouth, are just like everything the little character does is just so funny because of it. Like when you're running away and your face is just like, I was like, this is so good, and it's so like expressive as well. Yeah, like the battle animations and all that stuff, and like the way that it changes. Like there's one bit where a dog tries to touch you and it's like foot stretch it's out and it's like stretching around the screen, but like because it's simple pixel graphics it doesn't look that weird. Like it doesn't look like shocking, it's like funny.
And they can do weird things with like the text boxes growing bigger, and so you know they can go really over the top. And like, I agree with everything that you're saying, and like I think the art style fits the tone of the game perfectly, and to be honest it's probably a little bit out of necessity as well, considering you know how miniature basically a smaller team could be to make a video game. But like a lot of it doesn't look like nice, I guess. Like I wonder if this game came out and it was, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like, I don't know, closer to like Stardew Valley level of pixel art, and you know it was these same characters, like do you think that would like lessen the game if it looked all a bit prettier?
Probably, because I feel like maybe big part of the reason it's so popular is because people are filling in the gaps. You know, so they're looking at it so simple and they're like, okay, well here's my take on it. Here's what I think. But this I mean, that is.
Stardew Valley's still pretty simple, you know. I mean, there's some bits where you're looking at it, I'm like this is basically just one flat, like magenta hue covering the screen that I'm like traversing, and I'm like, you know, there's so little, especially in the environment, so little detail in a lot of the areas. And I guess your imagination is like filling out. I'm not even complaining or saying I don't like it here. I'm just almost playing devil's advocate in terms of like, what would it be like if there was higher detail in some of these areas? And there's actually a few like jokes made about the art. Like I can't remember what it was, but I looked at like a box or something that said like, oh look, it's a bed but in the shape of a box because it's easier to draw, or something like along those lines.
There was one time it did like, well, it didn't bother me. Like I don't care that much, but like one time where it was slightly disappointing was you go to a bar and all of the NPCs are just completely still. And it's like if they just had something, because when you speak to them, they do kind of move a little bit. But if they just had something about them that was a bit more like moving, and all the NPCs energy. Are like that, you know, they just stand completely still. They don't even look around or blink or anything.
That's it. Even if it was just 2 frames of animation repeating, so still jerky and like jerky and quirky.
Quirky.
Yeah, just a little bit more life. I'd really
in terms of the characters, obviously we got a lot of comments about this. We got over 100 questions for this game.
Oh,
which is crazy. So I'm quickly going to reel off a load of names because they all asked the same question. Bongo Matt, BK Nathan, Blitz, Hudson Ross, Sean the Draconian, Major Tom and Wolf all said, who was your favourite character and why?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
I think Papyrus is my favourite character. He's just incredibly entertaining, and the way he's like at the beginning just really wants to join the royal guard. And did you, on your ending, did he join the royal guard?
No, I don't think he did. No.
Oh,
he just no, he did. Yeah, he did.
He did. Yeah, he joins the royal guard, but he's like the only one in it, and like.
Oh no, on mine it just says he's just because it's just a phone call. He just says, "Oh yeah, he joined the royal guard."
Oh, there's like a whole cutscene with it. Where so he ends up joining the royal guard, and like he's cooking his spaghetti, and like that whole date scene was one of my favorite things. And when he's trying to when he's like setting the traps for you, and he does the trap, and he's like, "This square makes you move 2 spaces, and this one's electric, but you can't go on it unless you say." But then it's really complicated. Then he randomly generates it, and it's just a straight line. Like that made me laugh. I mean, I saw it coming, and it still made me laugh. I think there's some of the best moments with him. But what about you?
Well, quickly on Papyrus, I feel like we said about Ooblitz, he is just on the right side of being not annoying.
Yeah.
Like if they did it anymore, you'd be like, okay, this guy needs to leave or shut up. But like he's like perfectly written. Like he's so funny. And he's so weird as well. But, like, he thinks he's totally normal. Like, I don't know why his brother puts up with it. My favourite was Dr. Alphys, the dinosaur from the end. Yeah. Really liked their whole thing of like worrying about helping you too much, and then like posting their social updates that was like always about you.
Yeah, when she wants to call you,
and
like she's like, oh no, I'm gonna call them, and the guy's like, oh no, I'm not, and then they call, like you get a call and it hangs up. They're like, I called, but I hang up, and it's like she doesn't realize that you're following her on like the social network.
Yeah.
And then, like, you go to do the puzzles, and she keeps calling up to, like, I'll tell you this. No, I won't tell you the solution. And, like, she's calling up, like, telling you all the solutions just because, like, it kind of reminds me when, like, I'm messaging you, like, about, like, Elden Ring or something. And I'm like, something just happened and I want to tell you, but I can't. Like, that's just, like, what I'm doing, like, she's doing as you're playing it.
Do you also have that great moment where you're having a fight with Metaton and she's doing the, like, letters with her hands? And it's like the quiz, and she's like, ooh, like telling you, this is so good. It's so good. I was like, that's hilarious. I like her hands bend into the shape of the letter every time. I was like, this is great.
In your ending, did it? I don't think it did for you, but did it reveal like the dark side of her and like her experiments?
They did say, oh, she's not what you think, but that was kind of it. And I was like, well, she's made a killer robot, so I assume there was something up. But then that was kind of it.
No, so she was basically like experimenting on like a bunch of like monsters, and she was like injecting them or doing so. Apologies to all of the really hardcore Undertale fans. There might be slight inaccuracies with some of like the exact wording on this, but I'll get the overview right. But basically, like injecting determination into like monsters to like do like experiments on them essentially, and then it turned them into like these weird like almost like glitchy versions of monsters that you had been facing, and you have like these battles with them, but they're all jumbled up and all like mixed around. What? And then eventually they get released and they're like back with like their parents and stuff like at home, and it's like this really like it takes a giant like tonal shift, the game. It goes like super like dark, exploring like this lab and like uncovering all of this stuff she did, and you find out like she was trying to do good, but then she's like ashamed and like she's like too scared to like reveal it like to anyone, and so she's just been like living with like these monster abominations that she like created. Like I didn't get any of that. Really weird.
I went to the lab, a whole giant and then section. She was like, oh yeah, I really like Kitty Cat or whatever, and then I went to the Kitty Cat room and I was like, that's pretty funny, then just left.
Yeah, like, definitely skim through a YouTube video after this, because it's quite a whole mad scenario. But yeah, no, she's great. The only thing, and I know it's kind of intentional, at one point I was like, can you just stop calling me? Because it's
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
so...
I know.
And like,
Yeah.
like the humor's outplayed here. Like, I know you're doing this on purpose to be funny, but I kind of just want to keep walking for a bit. And every time the phone rang, I was like, okay, like what's the joke? Like,
and those arrow puzzles were pretty good though. The ones where you like bounce.
Mhm.
Quite like those. Quite liked all the little puzzles in the game. Like they weren't too hard.
Yeah, I wish there was a few more. I wish the ratio was a bit heavier on the puzzle side rather than like the combat. And they were a little bit more challenging, even if they were like optional side puzzles, so it doesn't like stop people's progress if they can't complete them. And also the random battles ended up annoying me. I felt it was just like a little bit too much. And then also because I was doing the pacifist run and I was never fighting, sometimes it just like, and it's also, I guess, kind of intentional, but I was a little bit unclear if I was making progress. I was never entirely sure, like, what am I trying to like get this person to think so I can then spare them? And I'll just pick options and I'll be like, oh, they said a new piece of dialogue, I guess I'm doing it right. And sometimes that bordered over to like frustration because of the difficulty. I think if I was just doing it and it was just a dialogue choice game, I'd find it more enjoyment, but I felt stressed every time I picked a decision that didn't seem to help anything because I was struggling, with not very much health with the dodging side of it.
Did you do any attacks at all?
So when you first fight Asgore, you have to begin by fighting.
Okay.
So I did that there, and then there's also a bit where with the robot where you're like defusing a bunch of bombs. And did you do that?
Yes, I did do that. Yeah, you have to run.
Okay.
It's like one in the top left, one in the...
I was like, I'm sure you would have done that.
Yeah, I did do that, yeah.
Did you just play a whole different game to like...
Yeah,
you played like like a first-person shooter.
No,
like,
I played the demo. I was like, it just ended at 15 minutes. It was rubbish.
But yeah, and that bit, I fought the bombs.
Okay.
Which doesn't affect the pacifist run. Basically, if you get any like levels... then or any experience, whatever, then it knows you've. So I didn't get any experience.
So I was asking because like the way you attack's quite cool with the like different, depending on what weapon you're holding, you do different like mini games.
Ah, I didn't know.
So there's one where you have to punch, and then you press every time you press punch, it like builds up, and then it unleashes them all at once. And there's one where you have to like kick in time to a rhythm game. It's quite good. Okay. And also when you attack, you hit really hard. So I can imagine like my random encounters were over in like 2 turns. Like I can't imagine talking to them every single time.
Yeah, no, it got laborious. Especially when it's like you're in a new area and you want to explore it. It kind of makes me like, I kind of don't like, I want to just like explore and look around, but I kind of don't want to now because I just don't want to keep getting random encounters. I felt like it was, they came up too much, and I think... like, I know it's trying to, be in a bit of a retro game style, that's why they probably did it, but I think where you see the character and you can choose to engage them or at least have a chance to run past them, I feel like that would absolutely work.
You did have you have the flee option.
Yeah, but it doesn't always work.
No, it doesn't always work. I did like the little animation of it though, of the heart walking away.
Yeah.
It's just like...
And then there is a lot of variety, especially in the boss fights, in terms of what you're doing. It's not always just dodging. Sometimes the heart's almost like, there's a bit where you're like jumping over bones. There's one where, there's things coming at you and you're kind of moving like a shield to block them, which is quite cool. And then it's also tying that into the story because later on, like when all these other characters are helping you, you're kind of playing all of like their different versions of that game, which is quite a cool touch where it's like gameplay and story merged
I really
together.
like the Asgore attack where his eyes are like blue, green, blue, orange, blue, so you know what order they're coming in.
Yeah.
Like, that's very clever.
Yeah, whether you need to move or not move. That was a fun one. So we talked a lot about the humour. Is this the funniest game you've ever played?
No, I don't think so.
No, what is?
You ever played Chatbox?
Yeah, that's just because you play it with me and I'm funny. That's not the game.
That's it. The funniest game I've ever played.
Like, I'm thinking, like, Portal 2 is the other one that comes to mind.
Yeah, those games are pretty funny. Portal 1's pretty funny too.
Maybe it's because I was streaming, I was laughing a lot more, but I don't think I can think of a funnier game.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't think games are that funny. I'm just really serious. Maybe this is the funniest game I've ever played.
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying
to me, the funniest game
games.
to me is going... That's it. Clever.
I guess it's humor through writing, and there's a lot of games that are like almost like funny through like bugs or like or like physics based. Think of like Gang Beasts and stuff. I guess
Yeah, like Fall Guys is all like very funny. A lot of the VR games are very funny, but that's because you're actually there.
Yeah. It's almost like incidental a little bit about what the game is. It's I guess multiplayer games is almost a different standard.
The writing is very funny. Like it is very well thought out. But you do need to have that knowledge of games for it to really work. Like you couldn't recommend to someone like if you've not played a game before, oh this looks cute. Like I would be like, don't even bother. Like you're going to be so at your depth. Especially with the ending, you'd be like, what is happening?
Well, why do you think it appealed to like children so much then? Considering like what some of the jokes are and the fact that it's kind of referencing long-running gaming tropes, a lot of them, referencing things in older games.
Yeah.
Why do you think why is the fan base for this game become what it is?
I reckon not entirely because of this, but my marketing brain speaks to me and says it's cheap, it's short, and it'll run on pretty much any computer. Is it going to be a massive part of why this game got so popular? Not just because of that. Obviously, the writing's funny, the characters are great, and all the rest of it. But those three things are like very powerful.
Yeah, that helps people give it a chance. But it's not on mobile, right? That wasn't.
No, it's not on mobile. But how many kids have phones? Not that many.
More have phones than other things. I mean, when we say kids, I don't think there's like lots of 5-year-olds loving
no.
this game,
I don't actually know. I don't know. But like I would say the fact that it would run on the family computer is definitely a massive, not the biggest, but it's definitely a massive help to it. But I think maybe like I guess the fans just kind of took it and went with it. And maybe that's because of the imagination.
Just think of how many games are released. Like why this one? I mean, there's a joke in it, whereas like it really made me laugh. There's like, did you see like the snail farm?
Yes, I did the snail race. Yeah,
and there's like this creature in like a really smart suit lying on the ground with with a snail shell on him. And basically, you talk to them. They're like, "Oh, finally! Like, I was able to afford like my like second home." And then like next to it, there's like a snail without a shell that's just like, "Oh, I've got no money. Like, I'm in debt." And it's like obviously like a comment on like rich people from cities buying country houses and outpricing the locals. I'm like the jokes. Like, I mean, obviously there are simpler, more straightforward jokes than that. But I'm like. I mean, how many, children are understanding, like, what that joke is actually about compared to, like, look at the silly snail farm?
Well, it's like, as I said before about your imagination filling in the blanks, like, you could draw this. So there's another reason why it gets so popular, like, kids, my maths book, I drew a picture of sands. Like, it's easy. It's not Master Chief, is it? It's, like, very straightforward. Oh, what's that?
But you don't want to draw them unless you're already invested. I just want to know.
I know, but it helps the spread, like the fan base. Oh, we now have an art. There's like good, decent fan art. There's like people are excited. They're talking about it because it's funny. Oh, and also you can play it because it run on your like dad's laptop or whatever. Like, and it just will just grow because of I feel it's probably a happy accident to be honest, but like
I also think the whole, the mystery and like the pacifist run and this run and all of like almost like a legend around the game helps. Like I compare it to like Minecraft. And you remember like Herobrine? Are you aware of that?
I have no idea what that is. No.
So there was like, it was basically like a legend that there's like this evil character called Herobrine, which is basically like Steve with completely white eyes.
Right.
And like he will invade your world. And there was like a picture posted online where they're like, oh, they invaded my world. And it became huge and all YouTubers were doing like videos about it and like, is it real? And like, and I feel like that sort of like legend can kind of really help grow a game.
Yeah, definitely.
And I feel like this game just has it naturally embedded where there is like all this mystery and have you played this version? And like, I feel like this is a game that people at school could talk about a lot. And did you find this place and this ending? And then they says this. And like, I think that probably helped, spread it through word of mouth as well.
Definitely. You're definitely right about that. That combined with everything else, perfect storm to make like super popular game.
Yeah.
But then again, saying that, like, I don't know the people that play it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know personally anyone that's like mad about this game. So I don't know.
Yeah, because it's almost become a bit infamous, the community, and yeah, in terms of like I was looking up online, and apparently there's been like streamers, like I know Markiplier was playing through streaming it and just stopped because he was basically getting so annoyed with the chat, like telling him, no, you got to do it this way and do it that, rather than just letting people just experience the game. And I experienced that a small amount with my chat, but I think, my chat's probably just a bit more chill and along for the ride. But there is a lot of like, oh no, this is like the way you should do it. This is like the right way. It's like, no, I'm just playing the game like how I want. Like this is, this is just how I'm enjoying it. So I think it's I think it's just when a community is so passionate about a thing, it can almost kind of gatekeep it from other people, or kind of put other people from dipping their toe in. And I get it. You love this thing, and it's a huge part of your life. But like, I'm just gonna dip my toe in for a little bit and check it out and have a bit of fun, and then leave. And that's an okay way to experience it.
Again, you are 100% correct. Like, gatekeeping is such a loaded term, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, people are like, oh, you can't gatekeep, you can't do this, you can't do that. And, like, I don't know. I kind of feel like it gets thrown around quite a lot. But the reality of it is, if someone tells you want play a game, like, just play it. Like, they're not in your house. They're not. Just do what you want.
It's more like a psychological gatekeeping, not in terms of like, oh, you shouldn't play it. More of just like, it just puts you off wanting to play it when you know about it. I mean, I think Terraria was another one for me, and that's kind of one of the big reasons. I used to do Terraria videos a lot, and I wouldn't do things perfectly, and people would say, oh, you need to get this item and this item and combine it, and this is the most efficient way, but don't use that sword unless you're using this arm. And I'm like, look, like, I'm succeeding here. Like, I'm completing my goals I'm trying to set out to do. Like, I might not be doing it like the most perfectly efficient way possible, but I don't want to. And so that kind of, was a thing that discouraged me from, streaming or doing more videos on it, because of how passionate the hardcore community was.
Oh, this is a very interesting conversation. I didn't know we were going to go this way. I thought you were going to be like, yeah, it's the best game ever. I'm going to play Deltarune 2, blah, blah, blah. Which, like, again, because the ending of the Undertale was so bad, I don't want to play Deltarune.
So Deltarune's interesting. So, as you say, you're aware they're releasing it kind of for free.
Yeah, two chapters are out, aren't they?
Yeah,
they're both free,
on consoles as well for free, which is surprising. I'm assuming at some point they're going to be collected up and charged for. But that's, definitely. I mean, that's quite cool.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, especially because the guy was like, "Oh yeah, the world's so rubbish at the moment. Here's a little something to cheer you up."
Yeah,
which is super nice. Like, especially
it's so good.
The amount of work it probably took as well. So
I guess the nice thing is, because it was basically made by just him, and it was very successful. Like, he's obviously insanely rich now compared to, like, even if it was just a team of 10 people, you're splitting up that pie. So I guess he's like, yeah, I could retire if I want. Like, I could make a bunch more money, but I don't need to. Like, yeah, I mean, that is very commendable. Do you have any interest to play it?
No, not after the ending of Undertale 1. No way. Like, the ending was literally like, what we were saying about MGS5? Like, we're talking about Metal Gear Solid again, like we always do. But MGS5 was like so bad it ruined the rest of the series for you. Like, the ending of Undertale was so bad that it ruined the rest of the game for me. And like, I don't want to play it again. Like, I literally was like, this is like just nonsense. Like, it doesn't make sense. And then like, I was like, oh, this is a very mature story. Like, when I was playing it, and then by the end of it, I was like, oh no, it was written by a 25-year-old. Like,
it's so funny because, like, I'm really fighting back not being like what I was just talking about and going like, well, you didn't see the true ending because if you spoke to the Tammys and then went to get the cinnamon bun, and because there is loads of stuff like that in the game where it is, like, if you bring the pie, the butterscotch pie or cinnamon pie, whatever, that you got at the beginning, and if you give that to Asgore at the end, it will bring back memories of when he was with Toriel. And so there was a few things like that I gleaned from the chat. And that's kind of what I was talking about, when I was saying about legends and hidden things that, that I think people really latch onto. And, just from the small amount of stuff that I got told. Also, like, I got a phone call. It's from Alfie's, or Alphys, however you pronounce her name, really early on in the game, and it was like a wrong number, and she was trying to order pizza, and I just thought it was like a thing that happens to everyone at a certain point, and I was like, oh, I didn't know who she was at the time, so I hadn't met her yet. And I was like, oh, someone ordered pizza. I was like, ha, ha, ha. But I looked at the chat and they were freaking out. And they're like, oh, he got the pizza call. And apparently it's like there's like rare occurrences that can just happen.
Right, yeah.
And like for most people, and it's like, and apparently it's soon. And they're like, oh my God, he got the pizza call on his first playthrough. I've never gotten it before. And everyone was freaking out. And it's literally just her calling up saying, can I have a pizza?
Yeah. Well, I had the snowman piece. And it was like, bring that to the end or something. Yeah. And then I kind of brought it out, and then I was like, I don't really know what to do with it. So I just put it in a box and then promptly forgot about it until you just said about the cinnamon bun.
Well, I think there's stuff like that. You go back to him or something. I accidentally ate it.
Right.
And I felt really bad about it.
The thing is, though, is the structure of the game doesn't really lend itself to replays.
No, because it could comedy.
That's weird. Yeah, and it's like, you have to sit through the text boxes, so why... Yeah, I did sit through them as well because there was that dialogue about skipping them, and I was like, I bet if I skip them, they'll be like, "Oh, you don't listen to me."
Yeah.
So I just sat there and I was like, "Yep."
There were some nice things, like I did in the robot encounter. Probably shouldn't even call them fights. Like you there's a certain point where you like switch a switch like on his back. It's almost like halfway through the fight, and then I failed. And then when you went back, it went straight to I could do that switch straight away, so I got to skip the beginning. So they have thought of some stuff. I do wonder if you do replay the game, how much of it is remembering what you've seen and done before, and kind of skipping bits would be quite nice rather than it literally just being a fresh playthrough. Yeah, would be quite cool.
That was I think that was the best fight.
Yeah,
I'd say so. That was my favorite. We did get people asking about, Joshua on YouTube, best fight. Character and music all goes to Metaton, really. The second time round you fight him, or the last time you fight him when he turns into a human, all that was excellent. Like the viewers like watching on TV, you can see the ratings going up and down.
Rating go up, yeah. That's so good. That's so clever. We haven't spoken about the music. Did you enjoy the music?
Yeah, some absolute bangers, especially the volcano. Towards the end, the music was getting like, even just like the overworld music was like just great.
Yeah.
The
and it was once again done by Toby Fox.
Yeah. So I looked up a bit of information about him, and he started as a composer on the games, and then he started making his own game. But like, I remember the Papyrus fight. It like, he does something to you and you change to blue or something, but then when he does that, the music changes. And that was just like so good. Yeah, great soundtrack. I don't have nothing else to say on it. It's good.
Yeah, no, amazing, and it's just horrible how talented he is.
Yeah,
the fact that definitely. You can be such a talented writer and then, coder, and Toby Fox is.
It's almost like, when you are one or two people working like that and you don't have a publisher, it is almost like, here is an unfiltered vision of what I want to make. Yeah, and no one's getting in the way of it, so therefore it is,
and it can all tie together perfectly, because it's not like, this level was, even back to early games, go back to like something like Doom, you could play, I'm playing a John Romero level, or whatever, like you could, and they were vastly different in terms of like design sensibilities. Whereas this, it's just like such a complete solid whole, and you feel like everything that is in there is done with intent from one person.
And he made it in Game Maker as well, which is like a drag and drop tool. So it's like, crazy that it's worked out how it has.
Yeah, so there must be some really like complex scripting going on in the background for all of these different outcomes and the different dialogue people come up with depending on what you've done and stuff. It's there's quite a robust piece of code, despite how simple the front is.
And I think I might have got this wrong, I might just completely made this up, but I read that the neutral ending that I got has 96 variations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but then I think they're just like depending on who's alive and who's dead.
Yeah, I'm sure they're still, very slight. This is back to like when Borderlands, like we got 75 bazillion guns. It's like, no, it's like this is the same gun, but this time it's orange with this scope. Like, come on, man. I mean, like
that's like what I had with No Man's Sky. They're like, there's an unlimited amount of aliens. It's like, his eye is 1 millimeter bigger on one side.
Yeah,
like...
exactly. How many pixels is in his tail in this one? Like, it's like we get it. It's a lot, and it's still impressive. But like, we're not gonna like fall for that. There's a reason why every game doesn't have this amount, because because most of them are monstrosities that look like they should be in Elden Ring or something.
So I'm going to ask you then. Well, actually, Force Ghost Yoda on YouTube is going to ask you: do you see yourself coming back to the game, playing through it again, or playing the sequel?
I don't think I'll replay the game again. People have told me the Genocide run is quite different, but yeah, I don't want to play through it again. I really enjoyed it, but it's not a game that made me want to replay it, which isn't a knock against it. But yeah, I might check out Deltarune. I considered streaming it, but apparently it gets a bit more adult and it's got more bad language in, apparently.
Ooh.
I mentioned on my... Ooh, lovely! But yeah, a few people messaged just saying, like, yeah, you probably shouldn't.
Okay.
On my other channel, which is, even more child-friendly than this channel. So, yeah, I probably won't. What about you?
No, I'm done.
Yeah?
I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. I don't care. Like, it's fine. Like, I played for it. I feel like I missed the boat. Like, I didn't play for it when it came out. I played for it now, and I was like, it's quite funny, I guess. But
Yeah.
It's not. I'm
getting quite curious for where this is going to end up on the list, because I was thinking it was going to be quite high, but I'm not sure about where... Well, I mean, are you ready to list, or did you have some more questions you wanted to read out?
Someone that wrote in, Rihanna Dove from Twitter, they wrote in... I'm just going to read what they said. What did you think about the end section of the game? I think Undertale has great humour and music, but I feel like the plot at the end is a bit sudden, forced. It's a forced narrative and it's contrived. Doesn't follow the show don't tell rule. And like, when I read that, I was like, oh, thank God someone feels the same way I do.
Yeah,
not the only person who thinks that.
I feel like I would agree if I didn't do the pacifist run, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the ending.
This is a good question. Littlefinger says, most surprising aspect of the game?
So I'd already played a bit of like the opening of it before, so I don't think there was anything that was like outright surprising for me. I think like the fact that like I had like it was able to generate emotions and there was like sadness and like more somber moments possibly.
I'd say just the sheer variety of the fights, like the amount of different things that they could attack you with and you had to move around. There wasn't really any doubles.
Yeah.
Except unless obviously it was the same character twice, but like in terms of their attacks, they're almost all unique. And every time I was like, oh, another new one, like another new thing to learn, which is pretty cool. I didn't think it was going to be like that, considering the rest of it is not looking beautiful. So.
Okay, let's put it on the list. So this is going to be the 13th game on the list.
Unlucky for some.
Well, we'll see how this ends up. Unlucky for Ty, maybe.
Yeah.
Who is currently proudly sitting at 12th place on the list. So what are your initial thoughts? Kind of how high up are you willing to go?
I want you to go first, because I always go first.
Okay. From just the sounding of our conversation, I think I seem a little bit hotter on it than you are.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd put it at number 4 above Ooblets.
Above Ooblets, below Dim.
Yes, that's where I'm. I'm pretty concrete with that. Actually, I think that's the place.
So that's it then.
Thanks
That's
for
done.
listening.
Thanks everyone. Yeah. God, it's so boring. We are literally so lame and boring. Okay. Okay. I would put it underneath Ratchet and Clank in 6th and above Forgotten City. So it would be in 7th.
Okay, so there's quite a big gap, because I feel like the higher up the list, almost the more condensed they get in terms of like there feels like there's less sunlight between the options, whereas down below I feel like it's a bit of the Wild West.
It is a bit down there. I wouldn't want to be down there with those three, with Onimusha, Harry Potter and Ty. I wouldn't want to be hanging out with them.
Oh dear. Don't drag Samanosuke in with her.
Yeah.
With their,
do you know what? The gap between Onimusha and Harry Potter is vast. That is a vast gap. Yeah.
To be honest, I think the gap between Harry Potter and Ty is pretty not tiny either. Oh dear. Okay, so yeah, that's a decent chunk down. Like what is it particularly about the game that you think it's what are its shortcomings then? Try not to retread too much ground. What are the big reasons why it's down lower for you?
Just I feel like it had these grand ideas, and it's kind of known for having these grand ideas, but actually in execution it fell flat on its face at the end, which was enough to sour. Like 6th or 7th isn't bad, considering it's above the Forgotten City and below Ratchet and Clank, but like that was enough.
You're bracing for the comments, aren't you?
Oh no, I don't care. Like it's not bad. Like I did have fun, but like the ending was so rubbish that I was like, what? So it had all these great ideas, and it was like, oh yeah, this morality system, but actually, it's in practice, it's quite stupid. So like, it's funny, don't get me wrong, but like, it's quite stupid and like shallow. So, especially the ending really brought to the surface the whole like, I don't even know what's happening with the flower and everything. I was like, someone's had a great idea about this, and they've just not executed it.
Yeah, I'd argue against like the shallow side. Maybe that specific ending, but I think that like. It's not a game that's just trying to be funny. I think there are messages and there are, deeper meanings throughout. It's so hard because, like, the easy thing to say is like, hey, my ending was great. But, like, you didn't get that. And you got the default ending. You got the ending that the majority of players are going to see. And the fact that, like, you got that ending and you'd have to play through, like, the whole game and more game to then get my ending, like, that's not an excuse. You can't say, oh, well, if you did this, you would have got a better ending. It's like, no, like, it's that's not the ending that he got, and he played the game like he should have, like he was just playing it normally. So I can't even argue against that. But I just had such a different experience. Like, the ending was such a highlight for me in terms of, like, emotion and humor.
But what about the whole thing is like the game's like a morale tester, to see where your morals lie, morality and stuff. But like, look at Disco Elysium and the way it handles it compared to this, which is essentially just Bioshocks. Do you kill the little sister or do you save them? And you look at that and you laugh. That's not a moral choice, but like that's essentially what this game is do you kill them or do you not? Like, there's nothing else you can do.
The thing I'd push back on that a little bit. I mean, you're not wrong, obviously, I'm not putting it above Disco Elysium. Like, everything you says is true. But Bioshock presents like a moral choice to you and tells you to make a decision. Undertale doesn't really. Undertale just plays with your expectations. This is a video game. These are monsters, therefore obstacles to kill, to get experience, to progress. And say, no, these monsters, these are all characters, these are all part of this world, and they've not, really done anything wrong. Like, and it's playing with expectations of just video games where we kind of blindly go forward and do what we always do in games, and it's like playing with their expectations. So I think it's a bit more interesting than the little sister dilemma.
But the only way to get the true ending is to just treat everyone exactly the same. So there is no grey area.
I was just saying compared to Little Sister, where it's like setting up a red pill, blue pill situation.
Yeah, it literally is one or the other.
And it is exactly what you think it is. You get a happy cutscene or a sad cutscene at the end. Whereas this, it sets up like it is like any Final Fantasy or Earthbound game, but secretly it's playing with the fact that you expect video games to be like this. It's kind of it's playing around with just the format of what video games are. So I think it's a bit more interesting, certainly more interesting than, I don't know, Ratchet and Clank or Mr. Driller.
Oh, that's I mean, in terms of a moral standpoint, it doesn't have those things. But I think Mr. Driller was more fun, like just in terms of the action and stuff. Like, it was definitely much more of a fun game than
it
was.
Like the gameplay, like Undertale, the actual gameplay side, I think because I had to replay a few sections and I was getting annoyed with the random battles, like that hurt. If I was had a choice to replay it and they were like, you can just skip all of that stuff, I would. I think that hurts it, and I think there is a version of Undertale that would absolutely work stripping out a lot of that stuff or simplifying it even further. That I'd probably enjoy more. But I just feel like Ratchet and Clank is so highly polished and like it's so well done, but it just hasn't got like, I don't know, the soul or personality. Like, it just feels, it feels so safe. It's, it's number 8 in the series of Ratchet and Clank games, or it's a reboot of the first one, and it feels like a game that has been made by a committee of very talented, very still artistic and creative people, but a committee of people. Like, it feels like it came from a company, whereas this feels like it came from like a person.
Yeah, and it definitely isn't the funniest game I've ever played.
What, Undertale? Ratchet and Clank. Oh god, no, yeah.
Okay. Well, you've convinced me to put it above Ratchet and Clank.
Okay, one down. I don't
think it's going to go above Mr. Driller. That's just a fun game, and also that's also made by a really small team, and the music's also really good, and it doesn't give you a rubbish ending that you have to. Well, I guess you do actually, because you're supposed to finish it 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a hard argument for me to make with Mr. Driller. I mean, it's hard for me because I think I wanted Ratchet and Clank above Mr. Driller anyway, so it's it kind of feels weird to now try and argue the point. Don't you just feel like Mr. Driller is obviously it's like just a joy, but don't you feel just Undertale's more like interesting? Like, I don't know, just like you had to think about it, and isn't it just a bit more unique?
All these things about you have to think about it, you have to do this, but actually you don't. Like, you either kill everything, you kill one thing, or you don't kill anything. You're not really making that many choices. You're just doing one of those 3 things. But
you just think about it because of the story anyway. Like, I can read a book and I think about the book. I didn't have, but all you need to do is just turn the page. It's like, yeah, I know, but you can still think about what the story was.
That's true. That's true, yeah. Although the story is, on the surface is quite straightforward. Like, you are a little guy or girl, you don't know what you are, and then you need to leave the underground. And if you're not doing pacifist or genocide, then I guess it is. You are literally just marching on. If you're playing for the first time, you're marching on. You're not doing anything else.
I mean, that is the way you progress. I mean, that's the setting, and that is like the end goal for the way you progress. But that's like the setup, I think, rather than like the story. The story is obviously all the interactions with the characters.
The more the interactions, the more the story, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just think my ending was just so much better than your, and it goes way more in depth to kind of explain about this kind of stuff. But I mean, you're pretty solid for Mr. Driller above, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
I feel like, just from the fact that I asked you about, would you want to play Deltarune, and the way you just said no, I think is. But if I said, oh, there's a new Mr. Driller game has just come out on Switch, I feel you would jump right on that.
Would you not play Deltarune? And if you weren't playing it in a stream, would you not be thinking the whole time, am I just wasting my time here? Am I doing the right thing? Am I going to have to do this again?
Yeah, I think the fact that it has all this freedom, all this secret stuff, and you got to play it in this way. I think now I know about all of that. I would be thinking about that, and I'd be like, I'd almost be tempted to look up beforehand what I should do, which kind of ruins it. Rather than just making my own decision. I do think that is a downfall for for casual players of Undertale that are going to just play once and not. I'm not trying to rinse content out of it. That's not what I want this kind of game for. And I think that is a downside. But yeah, I think a pretty solid number 6 on the list.
Are you happy? You sound really annoyed.
I mean, I would want it to be higher, but I think...
I just can't say no to you. I want it to stay where it is, but I really struggle saying no to you. You're too sweet.
We've had a few comments in the past about me always getting my way on the list.
You're so cute. I can't help it. Every time it gets stuck where it is, you're always like... well, I guess it's a pretty good 6.
I mean, it's a joint list. That's one of the side effects of it being a joint list, is that neither of us are going to be 100% happy when it comes down to the end of it.
Yeah.
But I'm always just thinking, what is the fairest representation of what we both think? And then maybe one higher or one lower, depending on where I want it. Just to get a little bit more my list than yours. And the fact that Prey is number 2 on the list, and with a stake next to it.
Well, I was about to say, how much longer is the stake going to be there?
We didn't put a time limit.
It's going to rot and disintegrate, and so
Well, for those of the audio podcast, when I edited the podcast originally, I put a proper wooden stake to put it in place, and it's now just it's like a bit of meat next to it, which feels less secure. But I think that's a little bit of weight in an argument for whenever a game does come up to try and tackle prey.
So it's currently sitting then. We might as well just do.
Yeah, do you want to read just the... We're doing an old-fashioned top 10 just for audio listeners.
So starting at the top, we've got number 1, Disco Elysium, then Prey, then Doom, then Ooblets, Mr. Driller, Undertale, Ratchet and Clank, Forgotten City, Halo Infinite, and Max Payne 3. And actually, do you know what? Now I've just read all those out, 6 does seem right for Undertale.
Yeah, for you. All right for some. Hey, I'm set up for all the comments now. I wanted it higher, guys. I wanted it higher. Well, don't blame me. Don't blame me.
I don't know. You weren't as positive on it as I thought you were going to be.
Well, I think the thing is much easier to like point out flaws, and like when I make notes, it's like when there's an issue you notice, it's much easier to make a note. But when I'm just like, yeah, I think this is the funniest game I've played, is quite like a big thing, but it's almost just like a one sentence moment. Like one moment I meant to bring up earlier, but I didn't, when I was just like, oh, so smart, I love it, I wish games did this more, is there's the bit where they say like, oh, if you go up north, there's like this like ancient artifact that you gather, and you go up and it's kind of like a red ball. Do you know the bit I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do,
and you go and pick it up and it's like, oh, you got no room in your inventory. And then you look at your inventory and there's like an annoying dog in your inventory. And then so you say to drop it and then it runs and grabs the ball. And I'm like, it's so smart. Like, and there's like, that's one example that stood out, but there's so many moments like that. And it's all of those little tiny bits of joy I got from moments like that. Or the bit when you need to put the rock, you need to push a rock onto the button. And like you push them and he's like, oh, what are you doing?
Moves. Yeah.
Yeah, and you got to like ask it to move. And it's like, okay, I'll move. And then it moves onto it. And then it moves off it. And it's like, oh, you didn't tell me to stay on it. Like, that is just so my sense of humor. And it kind of goes back to like old sort of like LucasArts, like point and click adventure game where they kind of break the fourth wall and have very similar humor. There's the bit where, you know, you're on the bridge and Papyrus is like, I've got all of these things that will kill you, and there's like a saw and a drill and all of these.
Yeah.
Like there's a bit so similar in Monkey Island where you're like underwater with like your foot tied around something to weigh you down, and there's all of these things like scissors, like hedge trimmers, and like all of these things that would save you just out of reach, and you're trying to interact with them but they're all slightly out of reach. And like it's such that same sense of humor. It's so over the top, and kind of playing with expectations. It's really funny
in the nicest possible way to Undertale, and I thought it was brilliant and funny. They are just jokes. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like a joke that then is also a really good bit of design or a really good bit of gameplay. Like, they are just jokes.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
just jokes is all I've got in life, mate. So let's not let's not
devalue jokes.
I mean, but that's my life.
You know what I mean, though, mate. Right? Like, it's not like, oh, it's a funny thing. It's also a really good bit of gameplay or a really good bit of game design. Like, they are just. It's like watching a sketch show. You know.
Yeah, to go back to then compare it with like Disco Elysium, I think that is, when you made that comparison about the moral choices between Disco Elysium and this, obviously hugely different games, but I was like, yeah, okay, maybe it is maybe a bit of recency bias in the fact that I just played through it and was so excited about it. I built up in my mind.
It's just such a shame that like if the game had ended, maybe even with Flowey killing the king, even if it ended there, my opinion would be so different.
Yeah.
Because it literally was like so rough, that ending, that it like cheapened the whole experience, you know? Like it really, I was like, well, what was the point of all that then? If this is how it ends, do you know what I mean? And then it just ended and I was like, oh, okay.
It shows the flaw with multiple ending games when there's, you know, endings of different quality, is if you don't get, you know, the good one, then it's a bad ending. It doesn't matter that the good one's in the code. If I didn't see it and I'm not willing to, you know, put another 7 hours playing through this game again, hearing, you know, I'm sure it'd be slightly different, but a lot of the same jokes, then you're just not going to see it.
You'd literally be mashing the A button through the same cutscenes. Like,
yeah. And, you know, if you're, you know, got a full-time job and want to see, you know, have a social life, it's just not an option.
You've got Elden Ring sitting there.
Yeah. That's when I said social life, that's what I meant. Anyway, so that's Undertale. I mean, Ooblets is on the list, but that's That story's been told. That's Undertale on the list at number 6. Well done, Undertale. Obviously, we remind everyone, this list is never set on stone. There's always a good chance it will move up and down in the future. Yeah. Speaking of the future,
keep your eye on Ty. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, any minute. Gonna start climbing the ranks. Yeah. We're just setting up the underdog, the under tiger story. Ty's redemption. Yeah, so speaking of the future, Ollie, what's coming up? Do you want to talk about kind of the future games?
Yeah, so we've got Warcraft 2 next, which, like Undertale, is cheap and it'll run on your dad's laptop. It's like £8.
So it's on GOG, isn't it? Good Old Games.
It's on Good Old Games, yeah.
There's also a multi-pack where you can get Warcraft 1 and 2 if you really want to dive in. That's what I did.
I might do that. I mean, this is your pick, isn't it? So you're the enthusiast here. Yeah. And then after that, we've got Last of Us.
Yeah, with special guest, mystery special guest.
Yeah, that'll be very exciting. Then we have Zero Ranger, which, I feel like maybe Undertale is the piece that makes the shoot 'em up genre popular. It's so close to being there. They just need to introduce more people to it. So we have Zero Ranger, which I've never played. And then after that, we have Driver San Francisco.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, if you want to join us playing through any of those games or all of them, if you want to kind of play through before we talk about them, watch out for any spoilers. Obviously, Last of Us will be a big one for spoilers. So if you are if you're the other person in the world apart from Ollie who hasn't played Last of Us.
Actually, sorry, one sec, quickly on spoilers. How the hell have I never seen that big flower thing before? At the end of Undertale, I was like, "How have I never seen this? Like, I've seen everything else, and this is."
I said that in my stream. I said that. I was like, "How have I not even just seen a screenshot of this?"
Yeah, I've never seen it anyway.
It's so ugly and like out of place and like the style, like obviously intentionally, but yeah.
I remember just thinking, like, how is this? I just saw a t-shirt or nothing. Like,
well, you probably did, but didn't realize it's Undertale.
Oh yeah, all that. Yeah.
There's a decent charge of that, but feel free to go and play for one of those games if you want to join in. If you've already played them or you just want to carry on listening, you are more welcome to do so. If you want to send in any comments or questions about Warcraft or Warcraft 2, then feel free to do so.
Look forward to receiving both those responses.
Yeah. If you don't have a question, that's fine. Maybe you're, of my age and kind of have nostalgia for it and kind of want to reminisce, or maybe you're just curious about it and you don't know and you just want to kind of ask us, about what the game is. Make sure we don't miss talking about it in the podcast. Feel free to do so. We'll be ready for the 100 responses just like we got for Undertale. Your inbox is going to be full in the morning, Ollie.
Yeah.
And what else is happening here on the bonus points?
Well, we have Do Your Worst. Well, it's been a bit quiet recently because I've been on holiday. But coming up, we have Do Your Worst. We have probably another tier list at some point. We'll figure it out. And also Best of 3, which I think the last one we did has been the best one, which is the brain training one. So that one's up. So you should definitely check that out if you haven't. And also, Joe, I think you should ask me about my
what
a
t-shirt. It's so nice, Ollie. Sorry, it's so it's so beautiful. Where did you get that from?
I got that from our merch store. Where, would you believe, even I have to pay for the merch, which is crazy because I designed it. So it's linked below this video and in our header on YouTube. Yeah,
it's my favourite shop in all of the bonus points.
Yeah. People always try and sell me stuff and I'm like, I'm not running a charity like the guy in Undertale.
But thank you everyone we've had a huge amount of support recently. So for everyone who's recently kind of joined the channel, everyone who's just discovered us as a side effect of the fact that we're doing Undertale, welcome. Yeah. We do this every other week. And we will be continuing to do so. But that's the end of this podcast here. Unless there's anything else I forgot about, Ollie?
I don't think so. That's it.
No, awesome. Then thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.